Hello and welcome everyone to this lesson where we're going to answer a new question I have received, and the question is from Karim. He says, I hear a lot of native speakers say amount of people instead of number of people, and less people instead of fewer people. Are these correct? So the question brings us to the topic of quantifiers like amount and less, and uncountable and countable nouns, in this case, people. So let's do a quick review of all of these points, starting with quantifiers, with countable and uncountable nouns. So I've made a little list here for you so you can see very clearly which ones you can use with which group. So as you can see, for countable nouns, these are the words many, few, a few, fewer, that's the comparative, fewest, superlative, and then some expressions like several and a number of. For uncountable nouns, the equivalent words are much, little, a little, less, the comparative form of little, least, the superlative form of little, and then the expressions you can use are a quantity of and an amount of. And then there are some words, thankfully, that can be used for books. So for example, a lot of and lots of can be used both for countable and uncountable nouns, and negative expressions like no, any, none, some, enough, and then the comparative and superlative forms are more and most, and also the words half and all. So I think this is a good kind of table to have in mind when you need to decide which quantifiers to use with each group. So that's one part of the question Karim asked. Now, the other question, therefore, is people. Is that an countable noun or an uncountable noun? Because, of course, when we talk about a countable noun, we expect to be able to put an S on it, right? Countable, one something, two somethings, one book, two books, three books, one student, two students, three students. So people, is that one or many? Well, this brings us to the tricky countable and uncountable nouns. And for countable nouns, what makes them tricky is the irregular plurals. And people is one of them. People is the plural form of person. The word persons exists, but it's used uncommonly in very kind of technical situations. The everyday plural of person is people. And the same with words, plural words like men, women, children, teeth, feet, sheep, fish, and series. Again, this list is not comprehensive, but these are the ones that I hear most mistakes with. That's why they are in my list here. So therefore, and then of course you have the uncountable nouns, I've listed them here as well. And they're tricky because they're usually countable in other languages. So coming from your own language, you want to put S on information. You want to make it plural, one information, two informations. English has this idiosyncrasies. And again, these words that I have listed here are the common ones that trap you or catch you out. So money, news, information, advice, equipment, furniture, feedback, software, and hardware. Remember these ones. So therefore, we already know the answer to Karim's question. People is plural, it's countable, and therefore we must use number of people and fewer people. That's the grammatically correct answer. Therefore, amount of people and less people are grammatically wrong. However, there's always a however, this has become a very, very common mistake with native speakers. I think it started in the States again, but now all the British people around me also use amount and less also for countable nouns. So, and when a common native speaker becomes so widespread, it becomes acceptable, but it only becomes acceptable and not a mistake anymore in informal spoken English. My advice would be for your own usage to keep it to the grammatically correct version. Use number and few with countable nouns. But don't be surprised or think, oh, I've got it all wrong if you hear a native speaker saying amount of people, amount of children, amount of books, whatever, or less problems. I've had less problems today. Really, as you can see, when I say that, I kind of cringe because it sounds so grammatically wrong, but it's now accepted. Now, so Karim's question has been answered, but I thought while we're on the topic of quantifiers, I would mention two common mistakes that non-native speakers like myself make or are likely to make. A first one, a very important one that I keep talking about in many lessons, is mixing up the words few and a few and little and a little. So remember that few and a few are for countable nouns and little and a little are for uncountable nouns. Now, a few and little without the mean a small number or amount of, almost none, not enough, so a negative idea. For example, the sentence I've chosen here for you as an example is, he has little patience, almost no patience. He won't wait until tomorrow, a negative sense. Whereas just adding that little a few, a little, changes it completely. Now a few and a little mean a reasonable number or amount of something. Some, enough, there is a positive idea here. For example, in the same context, we can say, oh, I know he has little patience, but can you persuade him to have a little patience? Make it positive. Now, but of course, the reason that this mistake is so common, that I hear it again and again from many of my students, is that phonetically, the difference is so small. Few, a few. How do we make it clear when we speak or catch it when someone else is using them? So my two tips here would be, for the one that doesn't have the sound, few and little, you can add adverbs to make it clear that there is no that there is something else. And the adverbs that you can add are very, so, and to. So for example, I would say, he has very little patience, he won't wait. Or he has so little patience, he won't wait. Or he has too little patience, he won't wait. So very would be the most common one to use in this context, to make it very clear that you are using that negative idea, almost none. Now, for the other one, obviously, we need to try and make that little sound stand out. And what does that? Of course, if you're writing, it's clear you've got the A there. But when you're speaking, the way to do it is to use the phonetic link. So connect that little schwa sound to the word before it, to the consonant before it. So can you persuade him to have a little patience? So not have a little, that's less, it's more difficult to hear than connecting it to the word, that the consonant sound before it. And so that's that common mistake. One, I would really recommend that you pay attention to it, because if you don't, you will either misunderstand the person or be misunderstood, right? The other one is not as bad, but I thought I'd mention it because I hear sometimes you make this mistake, or some of the students make this mistakes, and that's using the wrong adverb with the comparatives. So we've just seen that with little, few, and also much, many, the actual quantifiers, we can add the adverbs very, so, and to. but don't add these to the comparative form. So don't say very less. That sounds really strange. So if you want to quantify those comparatives, which you can do, then you need to use different words. So I've listed them here for you. We can use for less and more with the uncountable nouns like patience. You can use much. So much less patience, or a lot more patience. A little, if you want to reduce the amount, a little less patience. And a very good word is far. It's short and easy, and that really modifies the comparative. And then with the countable nouns like questions, use a lot, far, or slightly. So again, these are things you need to probably review to remember, but it's so that you're aware of potential mistakes. Now, the next thing is not a mistake, but it's about the usage of these words, of usage of quantifiers. In spoken English, it's common to use much and many in questions and negative sentences. For example, does he have much patience, or does he have many questions? And negative, no, he doesn't have much patience or many questions. And then in the affirmative sentences, we tend to use the other ones that are for both countable and uncountable nouns, which were lots of, a lot of, or loads of. Right? Now, grammatically, it's not wrong to use one or the other for positive or negative or question. It's just daily usage. Now, so in formal English, you will see probably much and many, even in the affirmative sentences. For example, much debate and many controversies surround this topic. That sounds okay. It's acceptable. Right. So that's about that. Now, so that's the end of what I have to say about quantifiers. Now, because quantifiers are a subtype of determiners, I thought I'd just briefly mention other determiners and which ones can be used with countable nouns and which ones can be used with uncountable nouns. So countable nouns are easy. Everything can be used with them except much and little. So you can use the, other, this, and that with both countable and uncountable nouns. But the following can not be used with uncountable nouns, and it makes sense. These are a, an, another, either, neither, each, every, these, and those. And again, it makes sense because these and those are plural of this and that, so can't use them with uncountable nouns. And of course, the others are separating several things from each other. So the last thing I'd like to mention then is that sometimes you may want to use one of these determiners, a, an, every, each, with an uncountable noun. What can we do? Can we do anything? Yes. You have to find a suitable counting unit to change that uncountable noun into a countable noun. So what I've done, the last slide, is for the tricky uncountable nouns that we saw in a previous list. I've listed here the unit word you can use for them. So for money, you can use a sum of. So you can't say a money, but you can say a sum of money if you want to make it one unit, right? News, we've got 3 options here. Piece of is the most common one to use as a unit word or unit expression. But with news, you can also use the words item and story. So you can say another news story or another news item. Nice ones. For information, advice, equipment, and furniture, your only choice is a piece of. So you can say a piece of information, every piece of advice, each piece of equipment, either piece of furniture, if you really need to count. Okay. Feedback, I've not heard any unit word that would make feedback countable. So just use the quantifiers that are appropriate for uncountable nouns, like some feedback, much, if it's a negative sentence, much feedback, little or a little. So keep it to those that can be used for uncountable or both. Finally, with software and hardware, again, you can use a piece of, but there's also the special word for these, which is package. So you can say these software packages or those pieces of hardware. Right, that's the end of this lesson, this presentation on countable, uncountable nouns and which quantifiers we can use with each group. I hope it's going to be a bit helpful for you. You can refer, that's why I have created like 3 lists, so you can refer to them if you are in doubt. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. For more on this topic, click here. Remember to also check out my complete online course and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and happy studies!